Oh my. So, it's still day 7. We've been asked to have a word with Miss Bossy Girl, and I'm guessing the teacher's going to be there, so we're going to see how in this time of crisis we are going to deal with this, because everything's looking a bit suspicious. Oh, amen and welcome. My name is Yuusha Anime and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. Now, I believe now this is part 42. Holy good God. Let me just take a swig to say, let's keep going. And we shall see this all the way through. That I can promise. So now, I'm probably going to record about an hour today, so I'm going to see if I can keep it that amount. Because just over an hour is getting a bit repetitive at this point, and I don't want to bore everyone with having too many long videos, but I want just under an hour if possible. That's what I'm going to try and aim for. So guys, and it was simply a fact that our efficiency as a group increased when command of the camp passed from Captain Sakushita to Kazuki. She carefully assessed everyone's personality and skills and assigned them appropriate jobs, placing a moderate responsibility on every individual's shoulders. Through her consistent distribution of tasks, we had all naturally become aware of our roles, quickly learning to bring certain tasks to certain people without her direct intervention. She has created a framework that enabled us to be productive. This toilet construction operation was a good example. Kazuki didn't stand on the sidelines directing us, but her initial planning divided us into our teams. One group dug the hole, the other repurposed a chair from the bus into a seat, and one group focused on creating a sturdy roof excuse me, that wouldn't leak in heavy rain. Oh, nice! And she designed a clear procedure for the job with logical, easy-to-remember steps, carefully tuned to compensate for our small number of workers by following her instructions. By following her instructions, we managed to finish the job rather quickly. The completed toilet wasn't too much to look at, granted. In fact, it was unmistakably a ramshackle hut slapped together by novice carpenters, but it was functional enough. Of particular note was our makeshift septic tank, filled with gasoline extracted from the bus. As an effective countermeasure against flies, maggots, and other pests, it helped erase our concerns about creating a hub for transmitting disease. Ah, so you're using the gasoline as a purifying agent. If Kazuki hadn't been here, I would doubt we would have come up with that idea, much less implemented it. So that was what she thought about. Given such clear displays of competence, even those who disliked Kazuki on a personal level were growing increasingly reliant on her leadership, although in some cases only grudgingly out of necessity. Ooh. Hello, cicadas, you're loud. As the sun declined in the west and the fierce heat and humidity finally began to die down, I set about making weed soup using our meagre allocation of rice and the vegetables we'd been able to gather in the forest. Today the job was far larger than it had been at first. For quite some time, every pair had carefully prepared supper for themselves, probably out of paranoia about the possibility of having some of their food snatched secretly away. But for the last few days, I'd increasingly been assuming the role of the camp cook. I went along with the new responsibility easily enough, since I'd been preparing meals for the wounded Hiroka and Sakurai all along. Increasing in quantity to feed more of the group wasn't really much of a hassle. I guess everyone finally figured might as well just leave the cooking to the girl who grew up in a restaurant or something. Probably another effect of Kazuki's emphasis on efficiently dividing our workload. Well, it's best to work to everyone's talents, usually, just so then everyone can get the best out of what they can provide. As I struck a fire under the primitive cooking furnace we constructed from moderately sized stones, the various pairs brought forward their mess kits, offering up all the ingredients they had on hand. Apart from the small quantities of rice and vegetables distributed at the beginning of the day, each aluminium rice cooker had a range of unidentifiable weeds. These damn cicadas are loud! and wild grasses picked up from the forest. Today there was quite a number of snails as well. Surprisingly, Komori had gathered most of the small slimy creatures and an above average quantity, although an extremely random assortment, of vegetation to boot. She'd taken her pet dog into the forest and walked a good ways in, gathering anything that seemed even vaguely edible, then found her way back to the camp without a hitch. Apparently the dog had memorized the way back by Oh. That could be really helpful. After that first success, Komori made a daily habit of approaching Kazuki with random plants that had caught her eye on such trips, asking which might be edible. The dog memorizing its way back, though, that's really, really handy. When night came, our short-sleeved uniforms were, as always, inadequate protection against the chill air. Having finished our dinner, Kazuki and I set off for the large tent and half-forced Hiroka to eat. With that finished, we finally made our way to Captain Sakashita's tent, as we promised earlier in the day. Okay, here we go. This is where it's going to get interesting. Yes, I can taste it. She was waiting for us with Koida-senpai inside their tent, where a small candle provided some dim flickering illumination.
Konbanwa.
Oh, Kazuki offered a polite greeting. Her tone of the voice suggesting she just arrived fashionably late to a high society gathering. Captain Sakashita responded with a curt, "There you are. Well, that's very polite." Then glanced at Koide and gave a little jerk of her head, prompting her partner, what the hell am I going? Partner to leave the tent. Inviting us to sit with a sardonic, "Sorry, I can't offer you any tea," Captain Sakashita got right down to business before we'd even settled ourselves on the ground. Well, you're very eager to get this over with.
怪我人の様子は？悪化はしていませんが、順調に回復しているとは言えません。そう。
For one thing, Hiroka-san's broken legs wouldn't have fixed themselves in a few days, even under ideal circumstances. Well, of course not, they're broken. And Sakurai-senpai's abdominal wound was healing very slowly, thanks to her worsening state of malnutrition and the absence of antibiotics to fight her infection. As an added misery, the intense heat and humidity had left her with a painful skin condition. Even the comparatively lightly wounded Canada's health needed to be monitored closely, given the poor sanitary conditions of the camp. For the last few humid days, she'd be complaining about her wound's constant itchiness. We warned her repeatedly not to scratch, but she had nonetheless picked up a troublesome habit of sticking twigs under her bandage and tearing at her. Ah, you fool! Why would twigs? And apart from those who'd been wounded in the crash, many other healthy girls were beginning to show increasingly advanced symptoms of malnutrition. Faces were swelling noticeably as our vitamin deficiencies grew more pronounced. Some girls had begun to complain of minor ailments. To be honest, we are past the point of monitoring the situation closely. It was slowly but surely crumbling before our eyes. Captain Sakashita listened to this summary from start to finish in silence. When it was over, she again answered with a brief, "I see." After a moment, she leaned forward to look into Kazuki's face and spoke, and for a moment, I disbelieved my ears. Wait, what?
つまり、彼女たち怪我人は無駄飯ぐらいというわけね。
Wait. Oh, she's going to prioritize the not injured over the injured. Oh, wow. With a start, I realized why Captain Sakashita had driven Koide from the tent. Whatever the circumstances, she was our leader, and in speaking those words, she had just betrayed that responsibility. Yikes. Maybe we'd all thought the same in some dark corner of our mind. Well, yeah, but I never like saying it. But no one had voiced that ugly thought, and now the captain had coolly thrown it out into the open. She understood as well as she did that a quite crippling pessimism regarding the food situation had begun to spread among the group. Well, it's been evident for a little while. We've been here for a week and managed to live off 3 days' worth of food. If we were to continue on these meager rations, the currently able-bodied girls would eventually be reduced to invalids, Without adequate nourishment, our physical strength would be drained, sapping us of the energy to work, and with our bodies weakened, disease would spread all too easily around the camp. That is very possible. That is possible. Simply by existing, the wounding were acting as a heavy drain on our precious supply of food. Their presence was reducing everyone else's ration. Ultimately, this might soon give rise to more sick people, exponentially worsening the problem. When we weigh the lives of the wounded and the healthy against each other, the former will always be lighter on the scales. In its harsh environment, that pragmatic calculation felt all the more obvious. Well, pretty much. We don't have the elbow room to be handing out rations to those who can't work. The captain's argument was coherent enough, and I understood that she had little choice but to approach our situation with conservative caution. But nonetheless, her words sounded like a betrayal, justification for unburdening ourselves of a load that had grown troublesome to carry, an excuse to abandon our friends and save ourselves.
私にずる賢く生きろと言ったのは風見さん、あなたよ。
So now you're spinning the... She's spinning the spindle against us. Okay.
ええ、確かに。でも、ずる賢く生きるのと弱者を吊るし上げて憂を晴らすのとでは意味が全然違います。
だったらあなたはその弱者の口をまかない切るだけの食料を持ち合わせているの？
Why are you so smug about this? Why are you so smug?
残念ながら。
口だけの綺麗事ならいくらでも言えます。あなたのいい人ごっこに付き合わされて日々体力を落とす部員たちの迷惑を少しは考えてみては？
Oh, so you're saying it's my fault? You're saying it's our fault that we've been getting the right foods. Kazuki knows what everyone else can eat, and we've had more than what we've actually been able to have in the first place. And you're saying it's all down to a good girl act. Well, ain't you a bitch? Right. Those spiteful words were all too clearly a deliberate act of revenge for Kazuki's insults this afternoon. Whether she was at a loss for words or simply too exasperated to speak wasn't clear, but Kazuki offered no reply other than a short, tired little sigh. I don't blame her. I had long before decided to keep my silence and leave this conversation entirely to Kazuki, but all of a sudden I found myself unable to suppress the need to object.
それはあんまりですよ。怪我人は餓死するまで見殺しなんですか？
Yeah, you plan to have that
そうは言っていない
happen?
でしょ。
Well, what are you planning then? For the first time in the conversation, the captain turned to me. She'd grown gaunt in recent days, leaving her cheekbones so prominent that her eyes seemed to have sunken in her face. It made her grim gaze seem all the more severe. So wait, so she has been eating the same as everyone else, right?
配給の優先度を下げると言っただけで一切の食事を与えないわけではないわ。もちろん今後も適度な量を配給します。どうせ動けないのだから。お腹もあまり減らないのでしょ？
それは違います。
There was another reason Hidorka-san had refused to eat that afternoon. Yeah, there was another reason, and you didn't even see it. And with the construction of the toilet, that problem had been eliminated. We could simply help her to the toilet seat and let her relieve herself in privacy, removing the biggest psychological roadblock to her recovery.
いいのよ、Amane。部長の言い分も決して間違いではないのよ。
Yeah, she's not totally wrong.
でも、広岡さんには私の分の配給を分配します。
は？
それなら文句はないでしょ？
なぜ私に確認するのかしら。あなたの食料なのだから、あなたが勝手にすればいいわ。
ではそうします。
Oh, okay. Kazuki leaned forward in a very slight bow as she stood. Lightly speaking the words less return in my general direction, she abruptly left the tent.
待ってよ、カズキ。はい、なに？なにじゃないよ。どうして何も言い返さないの？
This is a very difficult topic,
言う
this
だけ
one.
無駄だと思ったからよ。
Ah, well, yeah.
なの、私はカズキのことだから絶対に食ってかかると思っていたし、いつもみたいに文句の一つも言って強引に丸め込めばよかったのに。あなた何を言っているの？文句というのは相手の言動や態度が間違っていたり 正しかったとしても気に入らない時につけるものよ。
Monku. Well, objection isn't far from the actual word, but monku is usually to complain. So that still works. So nice use of the English language and the word to use it. Nice.
それ以外の時に口にする言葉のことは難癖というの。覚えておきなさい。
Hmm.
だよそれ。全然納得できないよ、和樹。言ったでしょ。部長の言っていることも間違いではないのよ。だからって怪我人の食事を減らすなんて間違ってるよ。だから私の食事を分けてあげるんじゃない。ノープロブレム。全然ノープロブレムじゃないよ。忘れてるかもしれないけど、和樹だって怪我人なんだよ。
She's
分かって
worried.
るって。
Yay.
何をどう分かってるっていうのさ。やっぱり今からでも部長に言って考え直してもらおうよ。
She
こん
won't.
なの間違ってるって和樹が文句を言えば絶対なんとかなるし、言うだけ言ってみようよ。
She's really worried about her.
いやーね、あなたの口ぶりではまるで私が何にでも噛みつくどこかのヒステリー女みたいじゃない。私だって世の中すべての間違いに文句をつけるわけではないのよ。そうかな。
Personally, I kind of had this image of Kazuki waving a battle flag emblazoned with the words, "We must correct the world" on some vague battlefield. Nah, I mean, I see why you would have that view, but nah, it just seems a bit inconceivable to me. Jeanne d'Arc style. Jeanne d'Arc style. Then charging forth at the head of the vanguard, or Van d'Arc style, leading a glorious crusade across the mistake-riddled modern age.
私ほど間違いに寛大な女はいないわよ。考えてもごらんなさいな。私が坂下部長に、あなたなぜ生まれてきたのと質問しているところを見たことがある？
No.
ないけど。ちょっと待って。今なんかさらっとものすごいこと言わなかった？
Kind of sounded like an indirect way of implying that girl should never have been born to me. Maybe she said it to Kazuki, maybe?
慈悲深くも寛大な私の資料を理解できたのなら、さっさとテントに戻りましょう。
She's
そろそろ
fuming.
眠くなってきたわ。
She's mad. That's what she's saying. She's like, you think I like this? I'm pissed, is what she's saying.
和樹ってさ、そういうとこマイペースだよね。
It was already past 9 p.m. I looked up through the trees to the sky, empty except for the bright moon and twinkling stars. The helicopter we'd seen for a few brief moments on the second day had been absent ever since. I strained my ears, but heard only the chirping of bugs. No cars running on the road above. Nothing. Why hasn't anybody noticed? There's a group of girls right down here, suffering so much. I was seized by the meaningless desire to scream for help at the moon, but I knew I'd only be making my throat hoarse. That early summer night, only the lonesome voices of insects echoed through the rocky valley. And now we're on day 8. So, are we going to leave or something? Because it's been a whole week. The 8th day in the valley. Rain fell in the night and the morning was cold. My chilled hand trembled slightly as I wrote. Come to think of it, was there even a point to keeping this diary in the first place? Thinking about it would always drain me of the will to write, but I never found an excuse to quit either. My pen moved mechanically across the pages. You just wanted to keep on... Oh, hello, Kazuki. Fortunately, the rain had stopped before today's morning muster. Perhaps I'd become used to being drummed out of bed at the same time every morning. As recently, I was waking up naturally, 15 minutes before 6. For the first few days, it had been difficult to sleep at night because of my hunger, but by now I was sleeping like a stone, and fasting at night actually seemed to make waking up in the mornings easier. Yeah, I've fasted before. I went a whole day without eating to cut down my metabolism. I wouldn't obviously recommend like a hard one, because the one that I had was only liquids for a whole day. Then I really wasn't hungry the other day. I actually had to force myself to eat. I actually lost quite a bit of weight doing that just the one day. In fact, I nearly done it in a day here when I was here in Japan. Just never do it every like week or every month or so. That's just not right. Like, if you feel like you're putting on weight, do it like once every like half a year. Like, if you feel like you're putting on a lot of weight. That's just me. I'm not a nutritionist at all. I'm not claiming to be. I'm just saying I've done it before, and I've almost come close to doing the exact same thing when I was starting to get a belly again. Okay. That said, getting out of bed once awake was growing increasingly difficult. I had no choice but to spend 15 minutes in bed waiting for my blood pressure to rise until I could stand up without instantly becoming lightheaded. This morning, Professor Kazami's tour of inspection proceeded as usual. The valley was shrouded in a cold, damp mist. Oh god! As we made our way around the examination line, many of the girls were swaying unsteadily on their feet, their bodies still not fully awake.
おはよう、いぶきさん。今朝の体調はどうかしら？
まあ、ぼちぼちです。
ぼちぼち。
疲れた顔をしているわね。私たちがここへ来て今日で何日目だったかしら？
8
日目？
Oh, 4日。8日。No, 4日 is 4, 8日 is 8.
そう、8日目。今朝は寒いわね。昨日と比べてどっちが寒い？
昨日はそんなに寒くなかったと思うけど。
She's trying to make sure the sensors are.
暑かったぐらいで。
She's trying to make sure the sensors are working properly.
そうね。お母様はお元気？今年でおいくつになられたのかしら？
何急に？
いいから教えてくださらない？
You trying to make sure they don't forget anything?
母は、多分元気。今年で42歳。
この子の名前は？
Oh, hello. Kazuki grabbed my arm and pulled me over.
Amane。
名字を教えてくれる？
Oh.
スオーよ。だいぶ疲れが溜まっているみたいね。無理もないわ。私たちがここへ来て今日で何日目だったかしら？
Her attention span's really
考える
going.
のが面倒になった？でも考えて。今日は何日目
？4日目。
4日。Oh no.
あらびっくり。ウェルニッケ脳症かしら？
Oh. Oh. Okay, yeah. Wernicke's encephalopathy. Isn't that that's the phenomenon where you ask the first question and you ask other separate questions to somebody who is they could be totally irrelevant questions, and then when you ask the same first question, you get a different answer. I believe that is what it's called. Smiling brightly, Kazuki leaned over and softly whispered into my ear.
今から言うことをメモして。
Okay. I hastily brought my pen to the memo pad. Chronic Wernicke's encephalopathy. Signs of severe memory... Signs of severe memory loss. Serious vitamin B1 deficiency. We knew it was a vitamin deficiency. We knew it had grown serious, but that diagnosis wasn't much good to us. We didn't have any needles, and more importantly, we didn't have the dietary supplements to fill them with. Of course, a dietetic regimen with lots of pork, liver, and milk could have done the job as well, but we didn't have enough food to satisfy even our basic caloric requirements. The only thing we can do for Ibuki was give her an encouraging thump on the shoulder.
耐えろ。
And express that hope her youthful resilience would pull her through. None of this was limited to Ibuki Haruna either. The majority of the group was beginning to suffer from vitamin deficiencies. Light fever, joint pains, and shortness of breath were widespread. I'm not surprised by the shortness of breath. That would be quite a common thing to have from malnutrition. After our standard round of inspections came to an end, everyone dragged themselves right back to their tents. But memory problems. Jesus. The morning was unpleasantly cold, and the pervasive sense of physical exhaustion didn't help either. Nobody wanted to wander off into the humid forest, where the chilly fog hung thick as a cloud. By the time noon rolled around, the temperature had risen dramatically, and people began to crawl out of their stuffy tents in the search for cool air. For another thing, we needed to dry our sleeping bags and mats in the sun, as they had grown damp from the humid night air and our sweat. Like the others, I pulled the bedding out of our tent, spreading them out on a long, flat rock nearby. Naturally, I took Kazuki's as well. I began to beat the sleeping bags with a tree branch, dust and dead mites flying out of little clouds with every impact. My stomach growled miserably at the exercise. Just as Kazuki declared yesterday, she had begun to add much of her rations to Hiroka's meals. Of course, this was being kept secret from Hiroka-san herself. No, don't ever tell her. Don't tell her. That will make her guilty as... That'll make her feel really guilty. Don't do that. At this rate, Kazuki wouldn't last long. When I told her I was worried, she laughed off my worries with some cliche about starving samurai making particularly leisurely use of their toothpick. Then added that a leader doesn't need to eat, they just need to act like they're eating. Deception, in other words. The words had given me a bit of a start. It was certainly true that everyone was relying on Kazuki, but I was surprised she'd come to think of herself as a leader. All of a sudden, I heard someone shouting in a clearly angry tone of voice, and my hand stopped in mid. What's going on? Sound carries well through the humid air. The bellowing voice of our team's advisor, Mr. Ochi, reverberated impressively around the rocky valley. What? So, somebody is still stealing. I didn't understand the exact details, but apparently someone had stolen fruit from Mr. Ochi's personal belongings. In the distance, I saw him lifting his rucksack high in the air, his face flushed red with anger. Glancing around the area, I found the others who had left their tents fixedly studying the ground, carefully avoiding eye contact with our teacher. Kaneda-senpai still focused on scraping out the burnt grains of rice stuck in the corners of her cooker softly, mumbled, "What a joke," without even raising her head. It's weird that this is the first thing you say, near enough, in like how many days? You've hardly said a thing. And now you're coming in barging in like Mr. Big Bollocks. I get someone stole, but holy god.
先生の勘違いじゃないんですか?
そんなことはない。
一体何がなくなったと言うんですか?
Yeah, you haven't told us.
それは
Hold on. Mr. Ochi stumbled awkwardly over his words. From the looks of things, the missing food had probably been something he'd hidden away instead of contributing to the common stock. Oh. Mr. Ochi's been stealing.
とにかく
Oh.
この中の誰かが盗んだのは間違いないんだ。
Well, how can we find it if we don't know what it is? Even now, his shouts bore the righteous, authoritative tone of the scolding teacher. But we weren't in the classroom. His students responded only with irritated scowls. Of course, I also furrowed my brow at Mr. Ochi's actions. No matter how much he bellowed, it was perfectly obvious the culprit wasn't going to come forward. Yeah, and you are just wasting your breath right now. Just sit down, mate. Just sit down. And in doing so, he was planting the idea of stealing from others in the minds of all the girls who had been honestly enduring their hunger until now. So if I get hungry, I can just steal food from someone, right? As long as I keep my mouth shut, nobody's going to find out. And it looks like everyone else is doing it anyway. You just created a massive problem. Well done, you utter dickhole. The only thing Mr. Ochi was accomplishing with this tirade was sowing these dangerous thoughts in the back of our minds. Well done, you dickhole. When the single carrot went missing from Koide-senpai's tent earlier, Kazuki had skillfully concealed the incident in order to avoid this exact situation. Now it was all for naught. Without a doubt, this problem would recur in the future. In order for people to live as human beings, 3 basic rules need to be respected. 1. Don't steal. 2. Don't destroy. 3. Don't kill. 3 broad principles that define the minimum standard of ethical behavior. And in our little community, one of those 3 had just been irrevocably broken. Because if somebody's stolen once and somebody knows that they got away with it, you've just opened the septic tank of hell. So, well done, teacher. Mr. Olchi, please, even though you're the teacher, go back to school in normal freaking survival tactics, especially in this scenario. For God's sake, you're the teacher and you ruined everything. God damn it. It's interesting though he didn't say what it was. That's got me the most interested, is what exactly was it? They say that liars often end up as thieves, but the opposite is just as true. When we become thieves, we begin to lie, deceiving and deceived in turn. We snatch the food from each other's mouths. Before long, accusations fly. Thefts become brazen, retaliatory. First, fights break out. In the end, some turn to outright violence, attacking others, destroying their property, taking what they want by force. All trust is lost. If things were to reach that stage, it would all be over. None of us would survive. We would destroy ourselves over scraps of food. Kazuki had anticipated this outcome from the very beginning. And that's why she said a week, wasn't it? That's why she said a week. That afternoon, I was in the forest with Kazuki gathering edible plants, brooding on the morning's events. Excuse me. Strawberry Coca-Cola really does stuff to you. I'd long since lost track of how many times I'd asked her the question on my tongue, but I couldn't help myself.
ねえ、カズキ、私たちこれからどうなるのかな?
It's a good question.
14回目。
Oh, we said it 14 times.
あなたがその質問を私にした回数。
Oh.
いちいち数えてるの？この質問何回目だっけと聞かれたら答えてあげようと思って。
And Kazuki's reply too was the same repetitive phrase as always. What will be, will be. There's no way to know how this will end. We need to keep thinking. She certainly seemed fond of it, but to be honest, I'd always thought it was a bit of a non-answer. Certainly didn't make me feel much better.
越智先生は明日ここを出ていくそうよ。
Oh?
出ていくってどうして？数日かけて周辺を調べて、なんとか下山できそうな目処が立ったそうよ。
Oh. Oh, okay. What's going on here? Apparently, having finally decided just yesterday to leave and get help, Mr. Ochi had been preparing for his departure this morning. During this process, he noticed the hidden food had gone missing from his rucks. So somebody stole that. So wait, that means the only people that would have known about that are the people that are close to Captain Sakashita. Oh no. Did she do this? Did she do this?
先生が隠し持っていたのは合宿の夜にこっそりと楽しんでいた晩酌でビールのつまみにと用意していたミニサラミだったらしいわね。
Yeah, people would be miffed if they found out about that, but come on.
サラミか。
An Italian sausage, ground pork seasoned with spices and cured by drying. Preserved food like that would make for ideal rations, as it doesn't go bad easily. No, it really doesn't. You could slice it up thinly and drop it on pizza, or maybe mince it and mix it into a big plate of pasta. Just imagining the spicy, salty taste left my mouth overflowing with drool.
誰が取ったのかな？それは重要な問題じゃないわ。越智先生としては誰も名乗り出なかったのがショックだったみたいね。もう限界だって泣きそうな顔をしていたわ。そっか。
From the beginning, Mr. Ochi had said he wasn't really cut out for this job. Well, that's all, folks. As for why, apparently he simply had a hard time dealing with women in gym. Okay, now we're learning about the teacher. Given that his job involved corralling girls at the most emotional stage of adolescence, he found the experience immensely nerve-wracking at the best of times. So he really, really doesn't know how to talk to girls at all, and yet he's in charge of a group of girls. Oh, damn. And now, of all things, he was living under terrible conditions with a pack of desperate girls increasingly crushed under the pressure of their excessive expectations. Really, it was hardly surprising he'd want to make a break for it as soon as humanly possible. Yep. I mean, I've got nothing to say to that. He's kind of on point with that.
先生がいなくなったら、私たちどうなるんだろう。
It's a good question.
こういう言い方は先生に対して甚だ失礼だとは思うけれど、体制に影響はないと思うわよ。
I actually agree. To be sure, Mr. Otsu has never exactly a powerful presence. Even during our normal team activities, I'd always thought of him as more of a cushion between the official authority of the school and the day-to-day management, which was almost entirely handled by our team captain. Still, we had more faith in him than that might suggest. He was an adult with a legal responsibility to us, and as a man, he was better physically equipped. He was better physically equipped to handle certain jobs. That is true. That is true. His presence here had been subtly reassuring in its way, allowing us to slip back into the comfortingly passive role of students, and while he wasn't much for stopping our fights, the fact that a teacher was watching acted as a significant check on our behaviour. It's like a club. It's like a school club. If Mr. Otsu were to leave the camp tomorrow, we'd lose our only real authority figure. Wasn't there a chance his departure could become the spark that would set off a descent into something uglier? Oh, I mean, that is entirely possible.
不安だよ、和樹。大丈夫よ。もしもの時は、私があなたを守ってあげるから。ね。
You'd think she was an elder sister calming a frightened younger sibling. Her words were immensely reassuring, but also inspired something very close to shame. It felt as though I had just forced another responsibility onto Kazuki's overburdened shoulders out of nothing more than pathetic weakness. My face crumpled bitterly, and I could feel tears building behind my eyes. Dang it.
もしもの時って？もしもの時はもしもの時。多くは想定外の好ましくない事態に遭遇した状況を指してそう呼びます。
I mean, that's the only worst thing that can happen, but there's positives that can come of it. So she's just saying, stay bloody positive, for God's sake.
まだ状況が悪くなるってこと？まあ、なるでしょうね。
Yeah, it's evidently.
でも心配はいらないわ。もしも何かを犠牲にしなければあなたを守れないという状況になったら、私は全てを犠牲にしてでもあなたを守るから。
Whoa, okay.
全然大丈夫。愛してるわ、アマネ。
Wow, hello there.
嬉しいけど大丈夫だよ。私、自分の身は自分で守るから。
I don't think you know what's coming.
あら、本当？実は私も自分のことで精一杯な部分もあって、そうしてもらえるとすごく助かるわ。
Wait, what? Kazuki was just affirming my own words, but for some reason it felt like she was abandoning me. All of a sudden, there was a dull pain in my chest.
大丈夫よ。アマネは強い子だから。
Yeah, strong girl. Strong. That's right. I can't let myself stay dependent on Kazuki forever. I wanted her words to be true. I wanted to be strong. Strong enough to help her. Strong enough to protect her. Strong enough to be necessary to her. If I couldn't be strong now, I had the feeling I'd be weak forever. Always hiding behind the protection of others. Helpless and worthless until the end of my days. Oh, damn. Jesus! Okay, that was loud. Just like the last time it rained. And it's the 9th day. Does that mean not a lot's going to happen today then? The 9th day in the valley. The morning of Mr. Ochi's departure from the camp was, unfortunately, a rainy one. Well, that's going to put a stellar mood on.
先生、どうかお気をつけて。
With the exception of the immobile Hiroka-san, everyone gathered in the drizzling rain to see our teacher off. Mr. Ochi stood before us, a heavy rucksack on his back, impassive to the water running down his glasses. It felt as though I was looking at a young officer about to head off for the front lines. Like a soldier even, god damn. As a matter of fact, there had been some vaguely sarcastic jokes yesterday about making him one of those thousands stitch belt good luck charms the Imperial soldiers used to take to war. And I tell you what, now that it's rain, I have frames per second for days. Holy God. But no matter how unreliable Mr. Orchie had been as a teacher, everyone quietly recognised that he was now our only visible glimmer of hope. The members of the basketball team had survived the fall. Our belt would have become a good 990 stitches short. Not to say that we sent him off completely empty-handed, although our gift was less sentimental and more practical. When the rain began to fall this morning, we hastily cut apart trash bags to create a makeshift poncho. Oh. But wait, now that I think about it, didn't the report say that there was only one survivor? So what's going to happen to Mr. Orchie? These had been a virtual necessity on rainy days, especially before we constructed the toilet, so we had the hang of making them by this point. The poncho offered some protection from the rain, while allowing free use of both arms. For a short time at least, it would keep out the wet and prevent your body temperature from falling too dramatically. That said, in the end, it was a pretty flimsy thing. Okay. And on a cosmetic level, it was not only distinctly ugly, it made an irritating rustling sound every time you took a step. Nonetheless, Mr. Orchie accepted it with a sincerely grateful thank you. Ah, okay, that's cool.
では行くよ。必ず助けを呼んでくる。それまでなんとか生き延びてくれ。
Now that I think about it, his character model kind of reminds me of the main guy from Chaos Child a little bit, because he's got the glasses, he's got the hair as well, like just missing the bit on top. But then again, we can't see it. With those brief words, Mr. Orchie turned his back on us and immediately began to walk off. Lingering for a long farewell would have been a waste of daylight hours. Once inside the forest, the thick tree canopy would block out most of the sun's light. We all knew too well how poor visibility would be in this rain, which would soon transform the jungle into a misty, unfamiliar labyrinth. Oh God. Of course, some suggested postponing any action until the weather improved, but if we delayed over the rain, it felt entirely possible we'd keep finding excuses to put off that first step. Do you know what? That's a fair call. Maybe tomorrow it would be too hot for somebody would feel too sick. Before long, sheer inertia would glue us to our comfortable sleeping bags. Because he understood that Mr. Orchie had made the firm decision to leave today, regardless of conditions. Yeah, this is the worst condition you could leave in and all. We watched him marching bravely down toward the forest, unable to keep the unease from our faces. If we'd had little rising sun flags to flap around, we wouldn't have looked out of place in a 60-year-old photograph. Okay, I like what we did there. But unlike the relatives, those doomed soldiers, our anxiety was accompanied by our undercurrent of guilt. We weren't afraid for our teacher's well-being. We were worried about our own uncertain future.
先生、大丈夫かな?
It is pretty uncertain, that's for damn sure. The words spilled spontaneously out of my mouth. Sakuma-senpai, who had been standing at my side, throughout the little ceremony, glanced over.
まあ正直あまり期待しない方がいいね。
Sakuma's tone of voice was resigned, almost detached. The first to respond was Ibuki, who had been standing at her partner's side, her limbs shivering in the cold rain.
私たちの食料半分も持って行ったんですよ。
That's true. Oh,
出してく
half!
れなきゃ困りますよ。
Kanada-senpai, as always scratching vigorously away at the bandage on her forehead, gave a little short of laughter at Ibuki's words.
あれでも一応大学時代はテニス部だったんでしょ。体力はあるんじゃないの？
Probably. Next in line stood Komori-san, her miniature dog's face peeping out of the neck of her school uniform.
どうしてテニス部だった人がバスケ部の顧問やってるんでしょう。
That's a good question. It's a totally different sport with different rules. At Komori's other side, Sakurai was pressing her hands against her stomach wound, bending over slightly to shield it from the rain. As the conversation seemed to be moving neatly down the line, she tentatively opened her mouth and spoke.
大学のテニス部って
要は女の子目当てのナンパな男子が集まる部でしょ。冬はスキー部になったりする感じの。
Is that true? I don't know. Prince of Tennis told me a different story, and Baby Step. Well, actually, no. Baby Steps was. Yeah. I'm gonna stop with Baby Steps, but Prince of Tennis didn't show me that. Apparently amused to hear these words from the normally meek and refined Sakurai senpai, Kazuki chuckled slightly aside.
その認識で間違ってないところが悲しいわね。
Is that really true? Her eyes fixed on Mr. Ochi as his figure grew small in the distance. Koide senpai responded to Kazuki's words with an anxious frown.
本当、大丈夫なのかな。
Honestly, I have no idea, but considering that only one person survived, probably not. Now that he had set forth, there was nothing more we could do either way. It was in the hands of fate now. Sakuma-senpai gave a wry little snort. Lately, her prowess at playing cards had allowed her to push most of her chores onto others, and her attitude was getting increasingly irrelevant as her leisure time grew.
あとはもう運布天賦に任せるしかないね。分の悪い賭けだけど、賭けってのはその方が面白いよ。
Clearly irritated by Sakuma's flippant tone, Captain Sakashita finally broke her silent vigil. Well, she came out of left field. How bad is this?
遊びじゃないのよ。くだらない冗談を言っている暇があるなら、他にやるべきことがいくらでもあるでしょ。はいはい、ごめんよ。
Sakuma's typically indifferent response earned her a brief, withering glare. After a moment, the captain turned sharply on her heel and stalked off toward her tent without another word. Heaving a small sigh at this abrupt departure, Koide gave a light nod of acknowledgement to Kazuki, then trotted off to follow her partner.
なんかさ、坂下を見てると、こういう状況でも怒鳴り散らすだけの人間がどれだけ惨めかって思い知らされるよね。彼女を見ていると、しっかりしなきゃって逆に落ち着いてくるよ。そういう意味では、いい反面教師だ。
So you're saying that she's playing the role of the bad guy in order to keep people motivated? I mean, it's literally like if you have heroes, you need a villain. And if there's no villain, what's the hero gonna do? Obeying someone simply because they outshout any voices of opposition is the height of foolishness. Over the days we'd spent here, the realization had sunk deeply into our very bones. At moments like these, everyone's gaze would naturally settle on Kazuki. They turned to a freshman, a small girl no taller than 150 centimeters. She's tiny! Ah! She's absolutely tiny, with eyes of absolute trust. Third years among us were no exception. The vaguely rebellious Sakuma seemed to have concluded in characteristically happy-go-lucky style that when Kazumi's around, life's a lot easier. And having essentially entrusted her life to Kazuki as a patient, Sakurai-senpai had even begun to politely address her with an honorific. Oh.
言い方はどうあれ、坂下部長の言葉に間違いがないのも事実です。寒暖じみたぶちり合いをしている暇があれば、食べ物を探しましょう。
But normally in this weather, isn't it kind of bad to do that? Considering there could be new beasts like the leeches. Are we gonna casually forget about the leeches in the last episode? There was no changing the fact that we'd given half of our already meagre stockpile to Mr. Ochi. From today on, our meals would all the more grimly austere. Even though he'd only taken enough food for 2 days, along with 2 litres of sterilised water in plastic bottles. From a simple estimate of the calories he'd be consuming and burning, he'd last 4 days at the longest. Sounds about right. Although Mr. Ochi had estimated that 3 days of consistent progress would bring him to a human habitation, we all knew perfectly well that he wouldn't be able to simply stroll straight through that forest. Well, reality-wise, that is true. But he himself was probably more familiar with that harsh reality than any of us, so he kept our silence. Well, yeah, he's going into the unknown.
ああ、この雨の中、森に入るのか。何言ってんですか。どうせ森に入ってもフラフラしてるだけで、全然働かないくせに。
Ooh.
仕方がないよ。私は貴族だからね。
Jesus.
一つお願いがあるんですけど。
Oh.
なんだい？
Oh, a serious question.
一度本気で殴らせてください。 みんなのために単身森に入った越智先生に代わって先輩を殴ります。
Oh.
それで君の気が晴れるのならそうするといい。あまり痛くしないでもらえると助かるかな。だから髪に触らないでください。
Oh, you're just rubbing her hair? Okay. Harshly slapping aside Sakuma Senpai's hand, Ibuki stamped off toward the forest alone. Yeah, you upset her. You upset her. Watching her partner go, Sakuma spread her arms, turned her palms to the sky, and offered an exaggerated shrug of the shoulders to no one in particular. But soon enough she followed without a word. Okay, she actually went. That's good. All said and done, they were a friendly pair. Yeah.
私らはどうする？
Fiddling with their rain-wet bandage as she brushed her hair out of her eyes, Kaneda Senpai turned to address her partner Komori. Staring down at the dog nestled against her chest, Komori Senpai answered in an apologetic tone of voice. She's not going to do anything, is she?
今日はアー君の具合が悪いみたいで。
Oh no, don't tell me the dog's sick.
またかよ。なんかその犬、雨が降るとすぐ体調崩すよね。やっぱあれか？湿度が高いと前髪が決まんなくて超下げなんですけどみたいな感じになるのかね。
I'm wondering if I should pay attention to this. Like, why is the dog so afraid of the rain?
まさかそれはないと思いますけど。
That's an interesting thing for the dog to do.
まあいいよ。今日は私が行くからさ。あんたは犬と一緒にテントで待ってな。
すみません。
Oh yeah, I finally figured out why Japanese people rather have small pets than big pets. It actually makes a lot of sense once I thought about it. I'll just say this quickly. Japanese people are more likely to have small pets than big pets because an average apartment size is quite small and also the walls are quite thin. So normally small animals like maybe a small cat or maybe a toy-sized dog or maybe just one slightly bigger than that is enough because they'll probably jump around and make noise in the house once you're out. And also, if they're too big, they'll take up a lot of space. So usually as well, if they're too noisy, neighbours will most likely complain. So it actually makes sense in a sort of way, but the average Japanese apartment is small. Just thought I'd share that bit of knowledge that I learnt today. Well then, what about us? When I glanced over in Kazuki's direction, I was surprised to find Sakurai Senpai still loitering quietly by her side. When our eyes met, Sakurai gave me a gentle what? A gentle what? Hold on. I was surprised that... Okay, so it's too far down for me to see it. When our eyes met, Sakurai gave me a gentle smile. As if to say, is something the matter? Staring into her face, I couldn't help thinking she really was a good bit more beautiful than the average pin-up you find in the cheap men's magazine.
桜井先輩はどうされます？
今までの恩返しもありますし、できれば食材探しに私も参加させてもらえればと。
それは助かりますけど、大丈夫なんですか？
I think she wants to feel...
お腹の怪我ももうだいぶ良くなってきましたし。
Are you lying?
ダメよ。
No, she's lying.
でも
気持ちはわかるしありがたいけれど、今無理をすればまた悪化するわよ。桜井さんはテントに戻って広岡さんについていてあげてください。
つまんない。
But would you rather risk your life?
食材探しだって別に楽しくはないわ。もともとあなたは体が丈夫ではないのだし、おとなしく私の言うことを聞きなさい。
はーい。
That was one of the cutest sneezes I've ever heard. Jesus. She getting a cold?
今の何？くしゃみよ。
Yeah, kushami.
でも今ペキュって言ったよ。一見すると欠点が少ないように見える桜井さんだけれど、どうにもくしゃみが変なのよね、この人。
Oh.
気にしてるのに。
Okay, so it's it's a complex.
いいからさっさとテントに戻りなさい。この上風邪をひいたりしたらまた私の仕事が増えるじゃないの。
Well, yeah, that's also true.
はいはい。
Smiling sweetly, Sakurai patted Kazuki on the head. then obediently walked up toward her tent, that is, the large tent where Hiroka-san was waiting.
桜井先輩美人だね。そう
Yeah, you-
ね、性格もおとなしいし本当に欠点の少ない人だわ。
Hmm.
もうお腹が出るような水着は着れないと思うけれど。
Hmm.
そっか。
Yeah. That is a bit sad. As she watched Sakurai-senpai walk away, her thin arm shielding her stomach, Kazuki's profile betrayed a hint of sadness. Sakurai's parents had probably been planning to bring their daughter into the world of show business sooner or later. What would they think when they saw the wound across her belly? An ugly, jagged, dark red gash, discharging pus faster than we could clean and disinfect. Ugh. Would they be overjoyed their daughter had at least survived, or hurt by her misfortune? Oh God, you're asking me the real questions. Oy, oy, oy. I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I don't know.
私たちも行きましょう。そうだね。
When I stared down at the misty jungle, I could see the indistinct shapes of human beings wriggling into the trees in search of sustenance. I'm surprised we're actually going to search in this weather, though. That is surprising. We were stumbling in fog, nothing to guide us, nothing but the unknown ahead, clawing desperately for survival. How long would this go on? How long until fortune smiled on us? How long until we could rest? What will be, will be. There's no way to know how this will end. For now, we just need to do what we can. For now, those words were still enough to keep my feet moving, but I was beginning to feel that the limits of my endurance might be approaching. Even so, as Kazumi Kazuki made her way down the valley, the only thought in my mind was to follow her. By now, I stopped even considering any other course of action. Jesus! Okay. Can you not do it so loudly in my ear? Thank you very much. The 10th day in the valley. It's raining again. Oh no, this is going to be horrible. Oh! But I think this will be a nice part to end off this episode at. Whew! Like, I know these videos are quite long for this backstory, I get it, but I want to experience it as much as possible, and I feel like if I don't at least do around an hour's amount, I won't feel as immersed, especially when we finally get the drama that we've been waiting for since the beginning. And this is only one route. We're not even done on one route yet, so imagine how much drama is going to be in the other routes. This Let's Play is going to be insane. But unfortunately, I am all out of time for this part, guys. So all I can say now is thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want any more from me. And I shall see you in the next video. Sorry, guys. I will most certainly see you next time. Damn, 10 days. When will the escape day come, I wonder? I have no clue.